Good morning. Back at it again. So I was actually in Florida for about 5 days. I think I was supposed to be there for 6 days. And I'm not saying it was a terrible trip, but the weather did not cooperate in any way whatsoever. It actually rained every single day. And there was like 30 mile per hour winds at times. So we're actually in Fort Lauderdale. Fort Lauderdale is right above, for those that don't know Florida, it's a little right above Miami. I almost feel like since COVID-19, the pandemic started, been to Florida about like 10 times, somewhere around there. I actually went to Florida twice in November and once in January, and then just again this past week in March. So in the past 5 months, I've been there 5 times. Um, just somehow ended up there for different conferences or vacations. Just I guess it's one of those states that you're just kind of free to do whatever. And they got nice things to do over there, like the Disney World and Beach. But I've been to Destin, Orlando. So not just going to one city in Florida, but multiple places. So one of the things I really want to talk about was like I said, I was in Florida. I was supposed to be there for 6 days, and by like the fourth day, I was like, well, the weather's not doesn't look like it's gonna cooperate at all. And just kind of made the decision like, you know, the point of being there was a lot, more like outdoor activities. And with the weather not being what it needed to be, our activities was kind of starting to dry out. So I was like, let's just change flight. I had to pay a little bit of something to be able to change my flights, but to me, it's well worth it. I've always come across people who, you have to pay something to change your flight. They just don't think that it's worth it to change the flight. They have to pay something. I will tell you one time I was actually in Vegas, and for some reason, I always make this mistake. I guess it's because of money also, but I booked like a later flight coming home from Vegas. And come Sunday, I was just ready to go. And I actually booked my flight using points, and they didn't. I don't remember the exact reason, but they didn't remember. They did not allow me to change my flight, or I couldn't pay an addition, or I couldn't use additional points or something just to change my flight. So I just booked a whole nother flight and went home. That's how bad I wanted. To me, it was worth whatever I had to pay. It was actually the cost of a whole nother flight for points purpose. And I got out of Vegas. So I was just ready to go. And it's like one of those things where I guess my question to a lot of people is like, if you don't want to be there, and if it's just going to cost you a little, is it your time, effort, happiness worth that additional monetary consideration? I will tell you, most of the time it is worth it for me. For some people, they consider that monetary consideration that they need to give up in order to change their flight not worth it. I'm one of those people that changes my flights all the time. Just because if I'm done, I'm just kind of ready to move on. And this is kind of what happened this past week was that in Florida, I said I didn't see any additional activities that was worthwhile. The weather was a little bit miserable. Again, it wasn't one of those things where like the trip sucked. We made the best of it, but like I said, it was just one of those things where we were just running out of things to do, and being stuck in a hotel wasn't that great anymore. So it's like I said, I made the trip. I will tell you though, so I have a real estate coach, and I mentioned this in the previous video where things got a little awkward between he and I. And I got this coach, and if you guys know me at all, I'm not really a realtor. I like to have create my team and have my team work it, and myself kind of run things. And this coach that I have, he's like, I joke with him all the time, but I consider his advice and the things that he tells me like worth the weight of gold. And every time I say that, I'm like, yo, it's worth what you tell me is always worth the weight of gold. But he's like, but you don't do any of the stuff I tell you. I'm like, yeah, I know, but I tell other people to do it. So it's not like I disregard it, and I always keep it in memory. Anyways, it got to I mentioned this in my last video, but it got kind of weird because he was sort of shaming me in a way, because I wasn't doing the things that he was asking me to do. And he kind of alluded that, like, I was kind of a lazy person. I'm like, dude, if there's one thing that I'm not, it's that I'm lazy. I'm saying that I don't want to do it. I never plan to do it. And kind of went back. They actually record all the conversations, coaching conversations. I was like, dude, go back to, when I first talked to your company and what I was looking for, and you're the right person. And I think, like I said, we ended. I was like, hey, I'm not gonna do what you tell me to do. And we ended the conversation kind of really awkward, where we're like, okay, well, there's really nothing for us to talk about. And I'm calling back and like, hey, kind of working with me in terms of what I was looking for. And we've always had great conversations. He actually owns one of the larger Keller Williams franchises in the United States. He's owned it since like 2003. And like I said, all the advice, he's I, I really don't even know what this term means, but he's sort of a venture capitalist also at the same time. He invests in a lot of different things, and that included being a Keller Williams. Keller Williams is just one part of his business, and I always kind of question why he's a coach. So I actually, when I was in Florida, I end up he lives in Miami, so I end up having dinner with him and having a really good conversation. But I've always had my doubts on what people, trying to understand why people do certain things I do. So this guy, my coach, he seems very well off. I mean, you can tell the way he talks, the way he carries himself, but I just didn't understand why he was a coach. And so I asked him the question, and basically he said that he owns the Keller Williams business, and talking to all his different mentees, he's able to get different ideas for his own office. I'm like, oh, that's genius. And it's not just, he's not just getting it from where he's at, which is on the East Coast, but he's getting all this information, and all these people who are his mentees, obviously they got their own teams, they're doing really well. And so he's getting very good information throughout the United States, and or any advice that he could, you know, put on his agents in his own office. So that answered one of my questions. And the other thing was, and I was kind of, and I think he's finally understood where I've been coming from, because I wasn't going to do what he was telling me to do, which is to be, I guess, a top producing agent. Um, wasn't going to do it. What I really don't have any interest in that, you could say. But he actually finally, the funniest thing is that he's telling me all this more recently, after a year later, of, he and I kind of butting heads, you could say, a little bit. He finally looked at my disc profile. And I've always had my disc profile, and I've looked at it every once in a while. I hadn't looked at it in a while. And one of the things he noticed was like, I was like a 99 on C. Like, most people don't hit 90 on anything. And I was like literally a 99. And what I guess what that could tell you a little bit is that I really don't do things just like spur them, like, unless I know that I can continuously do something over and over again, replicate that same process over and over again. And if I can't imagine it in my mind, or picture in my mind myself doing this over, or having someone else do it, I just kind of don't do it. There's always people, I think everyone knows, like, there's someone out there that's always kind of like hit lightning in a bottle and just done really well, get a couple of deals, but they're not able to replicate that. So I'm kind of like the opposite. I'm probably never going to be the person that hits lightning in a bottle. Like I said, I try to build out my processes unless I have something that can be consistently done over and over again. I almost even just shy away from doing it. I just don't even see the point, because I don't want to waste effort and then not come through again on it. So here's kind of, and as you guys have listened to me, everything I talk about initially in these videos is almost to a lead in to the point that I'm trying to make. So In my previous life, I was actually an auditor, right? An accountant. I actually have my CPA license. I used to work for two of the big four accounting firms. I always do something weird, right? Instead of working for one, I worked for Ernst Young, and then I decided to go PricewaterhouseCoopers also at the same time, or a little bit later. That would turn out to be not the greatest idea ever, but every experience I find great. So one of the things that we do in terms in what we did in our industry or in auditing was that we do what's called, and we call it analytics, right? But every company has a different name. At Ernst Young, we actually called it OARs, or overall analytical reviews. Now, guys, look at me. I'll tell you right now, disclaimer: terrible at math. Like, maybe a surprise to you, but I don't know why I wasn't gifted with the ability to understand math very well. But I can do simple math, and then I can attach meaning behind it. So when I was at these companies, I would do what's called an overall analytical review of a company, and basically really understand why certain things move a certain way. Like all the financial line items, I would look at it, detail it out, and understand why things move a certain way. And I was actually really like, it's actually one of the things that I enjoy really well. So you do it every quarter, and then you do it at year end, and collectively it'll be like over a 50-page memo document. And I was really good at this. I think the year end one is usually about 15 pages. And so I'm writing like a 15-page memo that really documents the whole year of the company. So like I said, I thought I was really good at this. Maybe other people didn't think I was, but at least I thought I was. So just recently, I got my mortgage license. I'm not a practicing mortgage broker or anything like that at the moment. I was hoping to do that, just haven't really put much time and effort into it. But I keep up with the news, and just recently, I think someone, I'm within all these like forums that talks about mortgage rates and stuff like that. And there's this one post that really stuck out to me. Was this guy was like, hey, if you had a pre-approval of X amount of rate, X rate from 2 or 3 weeks ago, that he's like, that's a relic of the past. That, guess what? You're never going to get that anymore. You were up to like 4.5%. And I was like, wow, that's 4.5%. So I bought a house back in right early on in the pandemic. And I got a rate of like 2.99%. I know there's a lot of people that had like 2.5, 2.25. And things have been creeping up like 3.5. And now, I see this post and it's like 4.5%. It's like, wow, that's kind of high. And I was really thinking about it, right? And then HER, Houston Associated Realtors, they issue their stats. And I was actually looking for a specific stat that they didn't provide. And so I'm making an assumption here, right? I want to say that, well, they actually did show, well, they always say increases, but they never give the baseline. So, from year over year, which I find kind of funny because, again, I'm coming from someone that with a financial audit background where you compare year over year, great, because there's a seasonality to it, but then you also compare month to month. So this month versus like February versus January. And they don't provide that information. So I find that, so you kind of want to see the trend, but they do provide it, but they just provide in this graph. And I'm not a big fan of graphs, just looking at trends without a lot of information behind it. So anyways, what I was really looking for was how they break the amount of houses sold in like 100,000 to 1 to 200, 3 to 400, 4 to 500. And I couldn't find that information. Maybe it's out there. I just didn't find it. But they actually had, which I thought was a wide range, but there was an increase of 80% of home sales between 250 and 499,000. So 250 to 500, which is kind of a wide range, I think, which I don't find very useful either, because I don't think somebody that buys a $250,000 house is the same group of people that buy $500,000 houses. So I feel like it should be 250 to maybe 300, especially when your median home, where you saw a big chunk of home sales is within that 300. I think the median now is 328,000. So a big chunk was like 330,000 now. So you want to be able to break out like 250, 300, 300, 350, 350 to 400, and then maybe 400 to 500. But they bucket this 250 to 500, and then they showed that there was an increase of 80% year over year only, and not even month to month. Anyway, so kind of going around this big circle, but I'm trying to lay the background of what I came up with, right? So I guess my point is that as interest rates go up and people who are buying houses, or buyers in the market, are very sensitive to interest rates. I mean, that's just a fact. Like, without any giving you concrete numbers, I think anyone could agree that how much someone can afford is significantly affected by what the interest rate is in the current market. And it's shot up recently. So my point is that, based on the Houston market, so here, I'm trying to backtrack a little bit. I don't think there's any new construction at this moment. I looked at quite a bit of new construction, including DR Horn Homes, which is kind of usually on the lower end of, I guess, the new construction builders. I want to say that they're the cheapest inventory home that I could find was like 315. Most of them were at least 330 and up. So there's not many new homes available out there there's no new construction homes less than 330. So if you're buying a new house, you're at least looking at 330. And then we already know the inventory levels of houses under 300. I mean, it's a frenzy, right? So if you have a buyer that's under 300, you're probably making multiple offers to be able to try to get a house, and they're trying to up the price range. So my point is that there's a huge chunk of people in the Houston market, right? Just imagine this. The median is 320,000. So there's a significant amount of people that's in the 300 to 330K price range. As interest rates have shot up, the people that could afford in that price range can no longer afford a house. And that's a significant, and I'm not talking about nationwide or anything. I'm talking about Houston and Houston only. So all these people that could afford maybe a house in that price range a month ago, today, they cannot afford a house, anymore, because interest rates have came up. And from my perspective, right, this is, my opinion, take it for what it's worth. Like I said, I'm terrible at math, right? Disclaimer, I'm terrible at math, but I can see trends and kind of I can make good assumptions about things. So now, if you're a realtor or real estate agent, a significant portion of the market has just been wiped off the board, meaning they no longer have the ability to buy a house. As it's not going to be good for a lot of realtors. And I was actually kind of talking to this through my coach, and he like I said, he's a really smart guy. And he's like, yeah, that makes sense. And the way I see it is that the people who have their process down pat, and there's actually a reason why I don't like hitting lightning in a bottle, because I'm fairly a frugal person, and I don't like to raise, I don't buy nice cars regularly. I usually drive my cars for a while. So I don't want to raise my lifestyle to meet something that I can't consistently get, right? So if you start hitting a couple great, amazing deals that you can't replicate, you start fooling yourself thinking that, oh, this is always going to happen. So I like to always build system processes and then move my lifestyle up. I came from a background with little means for the most part, and I try to never move too far away from that mindset. Not saying that I don't enjoy life and haven't moved at all. I certainly have, but just, not this angle, whatever. So I explained to them, I was like, hey, so I feel like there's going to be a lot of realtors that are going to be, maybe not do so well, and maybe have to make some different decisions in life. But, the ones that have their systems and processes in place, that can consistently generate leads, generate deals, generate clients on a regular basis, those, even though the market, I believe, will shrink, those are the ones that have their standards and prices, have raised their standards in a certain way that they will consistently get clients. I mean, it won't be the best thing ever, the best moment like they had in the previous years, but at least it's still a good living and still be able to make money in the market, right? Um, but there's going to be a good amount of realtors that, it's going to be really tough to feed themselves. And so back to my point, my original story was that, when I was in Florida, I was like, man, this is just not looking good. Like the weather looks terrible the next couple of days, running activities. And, I just made a decision. I'm like, yo, it's time to get out of Florida. And at some point, I think some realtors had to make that decision for themselves. Also, you can't, the market is the market. It is what it is. Either you change the way you approach it to conform to the market, to understand that, hey, maybe the best times are over, and then you adjust to it. And then if you have your systems and processes in place, you can still make it work. Or, you can't sit there and blame, like, oh, this, just kind of thing like, oh, this market sucks, and you don't make any changes. Like, I think realtors will have to make some changes. And that could mean exiting from being a realtor. That's just kind of the way it works. So that was kind of a long-winded explanation. Ultimately, I really think the market, and so I'll really, another point I want to make, and I want to differentiate. In no way am I saying that there's a housing crash. Everyone likes to say, "Oh, there's a housing crash." Like, I did not mention a housing crash in any way, shape, or form. Man, I don't even know what people even mean. Like, people, if someone's gonna say, "Oh, there's gonna be a housing crash in 2022 or 2023," like, explain what that means. Like, home value is gonna increase by 10%, 20, 30%, or what price range, what part of the country, right? So can't really, there's always these like national speakers that, make these predictions where there's gonna be a housing market. Like, every housing market is very different. There's no way that you can compare like the housing market in, like, for instance, like the Rust Belt or something compared to Houston. I mean, the markets are completely different. I think they move at different times. So, when I always like, so I'm not predicting a housing crash whatsoever. I'm just saying that for realtors, right, the market for buyers, the amount of buyers in the market is going to significantly shrink. That doesn't, I didn't say that they're going to be completely gone, but it will significantly shrink to where the realtors that have their systems and processes in place will continue to do well, help their buyers buy houses, right? Interest rate increase doesn't mean that you cannot get a loan. It just means that the affordability for certain people have gone away. So anyways, that's, I saw this joke recently that, that's my 2 cents, or, due to inflation, my 3.5 cents this time around. Hope you guys, you find that, informative. I feel like I said, I think we can all agree, if we can agree on certain things. One is that the market, in terms of like the sensitivity of buyers in the market to interest rates, is significant for buying a house. That's period. I think we can all agree in that. If we can agree that there's a significant portion of the Houston market within that 330K price range, and that's kind of like their max price range, is the median. And if interest rates shoot up a percent, that a significant portion that those buyers will no longer be able to afford in that price range. And we're already, like I said, I've already stated that all the new construction homes are like priced 330,000 and up. And I could be wrong. Maybe a little bit further out there, a little bit less, but overall, I think the cheapest I've seen on average is about 330,000. So I just don't see, I see tough times ahead for a lot of realtors, and, the ones that can hunker down and really, rely on their process, systems and process, they're what they do on a regular basis, and not, oh, like I got lucky here and there. Things that you can replicate over and over will continue to do well. But the agents that just, get a few deals here and there, and they don't really have a process to replicate that same success over and over again, there's going to be some struggles, and some tough decisions will have to be made, in order, in people's lives. And life's not over. It's just, you just got to decide to go do something else. But anyways, hope you guys enjoyed that video. Talk to you guys next time.